right, here we are, another episode, ShiftED podcast, coming to you from cold Quebec. Um, the snow just never seems to stop. But we are moving forward with it, and we're thinking spring because I think it's already spring, right? Or it should be soon. Anyway, um, today I have Shannon Merenstein coming in from the Creative Project and also the Hatch Partners in Play she works with. Also an author, wrote a great book called Collage Workshop for Kids, which you should definitely check out. And today we're going to talk about her work, and what she does with creativity and play and art and kids, which I think is going to be fascinating for our listeners. And Shannon, before we start, thank you very much for accepting this. First off, this is a real pleasure to talk to you. I've been following you forever.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
well, since the dawn of it's been going, I guess, 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, your project.
Yeah. We started Hatch actually about 9 years ago.
Oh,
When my older son was just a little baby. So on his first birthday,
mm,
we opened Hatch, which was a studio, a physical space here in Pittsburgh, and has evolved into many and morphed into many different projects. And that also kind of gave way to a collaboration with my good friend and partner at the Creativity Project, Bar Rucci.
right.
And we've written these two sister books together, as you mentioned, Collage Workshop for Kids and Bar's book, Art Workshop. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we have been working with teachers and caregivers really all over the world in the past 5 years or so, since
Amazing.
the beginning of the pandemic, really encouraging folks to prioritize play and creativity in their classrooms and at home.
Absolutely. And Shannon, how did you get to where you are now? Like, what were some important moments in your journey so far in your career that brought you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I have always been a maker and an artist since a young child. Um, my parents agreed to let me go to art school in New York if I would tack on something practical. So I studied painting at Pratt Institute in New York, and I also ended up studying art education there. And so I worked with some amazing art teachers in two New York City public schools, one in Brooklyn and one in Harlem. Um, and and of course, studied with some amazing professors who introduced me to the Reggio Emilia approach, to Montessori, to all sorts of methods and pedagogical approaches that really honor the child and um, their instincts and ideas, especially around making. And I really enjoyed that program. I came back to Pittsburgh, where I'm from, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, shortly after that, and took a teaching position um, at a local school where I taught art on the cart. If listeners are familiar, that's where
Where you
the
roam?
art teacher without a room,
Right.
visiting all of the
Right.
classrooms in the school.
Mm,
I did that for almost a decade. And when I had my first child, I was really wondering what it would be like to be able to stretch my wings a little bit,
right.
and be able to really implement some of the practices, especially around process art and open-ended play, that I was really
Mm,
craving to do in the school system, but
mm,
was sort of confined in many ways by objectives and standards and um, a call to integrate sort of the more academic subjects even into our art curriculum, and
mm,
which is wonderful in many ways, but
mhm.
also um, was limiting
Right.
in some
Yeah.
ways. And what I wanted to create was a space where children could guide their own experience. They could be the decision makers in
Mhm.
that studio space. They could decide how they would combine the materials, They would be supported in, moving around the space as they wished, really having some agency.
Mm,
And I have just found that young children really don't get very much opportunity to do that. And so
right.
that space was very special.
Mm,
And it eventually kind of morphed into other projects and other work. Around the same time, kind of 2021 or so, um, I was starting to crave the community of being in schools again, to be with
mm,
other teachers, and also to kind of legitimize some of the practices that we were exploring in the
mm-hmm.
studio space by integrating them back into the schools. And so I put a call out there asking if there were any public school teachers in our area who would be interested in kind of taking a risk in embedding some of those open-ended play practices
Yeah,
within the context of their school day.
right.
And I was literally led in the back door by this amazing team of kindergarten and first grade teachers who told
Awesome.
me that they would let their principal know a few months into the project how things were going.
Get it going.
And yeah,
That's it.
kind of give
Mm,
him a sense of how positive they knew it would be, how
right.
how beneficial they knew it would be for the children who were just coming back to school after almost 18 months of
Right.
virtual on and off learning
Yeah.
through the first year and a half of the pandemic.
Right.
So
Right.
um, that sort of leads
Such
me
a
to
big
where
challenge.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's an interesting journey you've been on so far. And
yeah.
I mean, it looks so bright, the future as well, with a few caveats as we go through.
Mhm.
I guess one of the first questions, I love your story. And I sometimes have a problem explaining creativity. Um, teachers sometimes when they come into our space and we're about to do, a workshop on, again, we tend to like doing open-ended as well. And they always have, well, not always. Some of them have this idea that they're not creative, right? That you're either creative or you're not. I guess it's kind of like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Mhm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about creativity, what it is, how do we develop it? Kind of the nuts and bolts of it a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, Bar and I often talk about creativity as a muscle that needs to
Mm,
be flexed often,
right.
exercised often. And none of us are without it. But it can get lost along the way, depending on the experiences that we have as
Mm-hmm.
children, as adolescents, even as adults, in being told that there is one right way, or that creativity means that you're a technically excellent artist, or creativity means that you know just how things go together, or that you have, lots and lots of ideas. But I think that creativity is a lens, really, that we look
Mm,
through the world with. And creativity and play to me are so intertwined. The play is sort
right.
of the activity of being creative, of being generative, whether that's, building worlds, whether that's telling a story, whether that's combining materials and making a sculpture, making, an idea, sharing an idea with somebody else. I
Mm,
think that all of those are creative ways of being. And then it's just, I think the creativity is a way of approaching the world, thinking flexibly,
mm,
the ability to kind of see the possibility in something, and to express that. And yeah, I think it's a muscle that needs to be
mm.
flexed. And, the
I
more
like that idea.
opportunities we have, the more we feel confident in that creativity, I think.
Right, right. And you mentioned the connection to play, which I totally agree with you. And again, play is also something that seems to be a bit misunderstood.
Mhm.
Could you define what play? So creativity, I love it is something you like when I bring people in and we practice, I say it's brain, creativity gym, brain gym, where they have to practice it. It doesn't just come not, you're not just going to start playing Mozart or drawing like
Right.
Picasso. Like it just doesn't
Yeah.
happen that way. Like in anything, right? You don't start hitting home runs if you've never picked the
Yeah.
bat up, right? Um, Where does the intersection between creativity and play meet one another?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many definitions for play, but for in my context anyway, in my work with children and with teachers, I
Hmm.
really think of play as this self-motivated, self-driven experience that we're having that, can get us into a flow state, or it can produce new ideas. It can, build this connection with somebody else that we didn't know we had. It can help us know about ourselves. And
Yeah.
play looks so different for every person. The way that I've thought about this a lot, especially as my own children are growing up. They play with their whole bodies. They play in big ways. They want to play outside. They want to be outside. They want to be exploring. I played as a child very differently. I loved, I was very much into, art making and paper dolls
Hmm.
and mixing potions in my bathroom and all sorts of, sort of independent play that's just so different than how my own children, engage with the world.
Yeah.
And that has helped me helped me shape the programs and kind of guidance that we offer so much, because I think the most important sort of aspect of play for me is the choice and agency that the player has in that
Right.
experience.
Right.
Um, and when I talk about open-ended play, that's very different than, say doing a puzzle, for example, or playing a board game with rules, or even some of the recess games that, sports or other play activities. I think open-ended play, can take on so many different forms.
Mm.
Um, it, of course, it might have rules or boundaries that are created by the players, but um, it's about iteration. It's about, innovation. It's about trying things, testing things out. And I think that's just
Mm.
that's sort of a different form of play than what might come to mind immediately when we talk to teachers, or
Right.
other adults, parents, or administrators who kind of have a bird's eye view of recess, or what other sorts of, other kinds of play, like I mentioned, kind of the.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And with the demands of school, the stuff they have to deliver and I guess the knowledge they have to, engage with and share,
Mhm.
does that conflict with? I guess my question is this: can open-ended play or open-ended projects or activities be incorporated in a classroom that is very structured, with the content that they have to deliver?
Yeah.
Um, and if so, can you offer some examples or some tips and tricks on how a teacher, seeing that they want that to happen more in their class, how do they start opening up their lessons to the students?
Yeah. So I think you're hitting on something here, is that the first step is that that teacher has to at least have some curiosity around what it might be like to incorporate, some more of this open-ended play and project work
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom. I think that curiosity and openness is kind of the critical first step. Um, it because when we engage in these experiences, there is a shift in the adult's role, in the classroom. And I think that that can be intimidating, or even a little scary for many educators. And um, the project that I was mentioning earlier, Play Lab, um,
Mm-hmm.
where we began this work with three veteran kindergarten and first grade educators. One of my partners, a first grade teacher, Jerome Morris, he's been teaching for over 30 plus years, in
Well,
Pittsburgh Public Schools, wanted to know, like, what is my role in this, in Play Lab,
mm,
which is, this protected period of open-ended play where the children are really deciding how they're going to play, with whom, for how long, and the teacher is kind of curating the environment a little bit to offer these choices. But other than that, the children are really driving this play experience. And so he was asking
Yeah.
again and again, what is my role in this? What should I be doing during
Mhm.
this time? And I think that has come up so now, with dozens and dozens of teachers. What is my role in this? What should I be
Right.
doing?
Right.
Because many educators are so used to, kind of being the sage on the stage and directing
Hmm.
the experience and guiding
Yeah.
every step of the way. Um, and, really being a performer in so many ways too.
Right.
And so
Right.
it can feel uncomfortable at first to take on a quieter role, a more as a researcher, as an observer. But what we have found again and again when we're having these conversations, reflective conversations about play with the teachers that we work with, is that play gives children an opportunity, gives the adult an opportunity to see the children in much more multidimensional ways.
Right.
I can't tell
Right.
you how many times I've had conversations with teachers who, describe children in really deficit-based ways,
Mm.
about their academic
Right.
selves.
Yeah.
And again and again and again, teachers are so surprised by what they learn about the children when they see them engaged in their preferred way of
Mm.
learning through
Mm.
play. Um,
Totally.
and
Totally. Mm.
um, that has been really powerful for me to be able to then begin to build this case for play because
Right.
one of my partners in Detroit, her name is Carla Shalaby. She's the author of Troublemakers, but she also works in with Detroit Public Schools through the University of Michigan. And she
Mm.
has said to me so many times, there is no denying that the behavior issues that we're seeing in schools, the mental health issues that we're seeing are significant. They
Hmm.
can be totally disruptive to teaching and learning. It can throw off the entire day. Teachers are
Mm.
exhausted. Administrators are sort of at a loss for what to do about this. And
Mm.
Play Lab gives children and this opportunity to show their classroom community the best
Right.
version of themselves in that context.
Mm.
Um, so there's a huge opportunity for teachers in open-ended play to actually become observers and researchers and learn about their students and then use that either to
Right.
sustain the relationship and the energy that it takes, throughout the rest of the day, or to even inform their instruction in some ways, based on the interests and ideas of the children.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah,
It's cool. Like I remember that too. Like teachers, if I go into their classrooms and we do these open ended, they like, I've never seen that kid like that
yes,
before, or that kid, I've never seen them so engaged. They're always, or they'll point them out ahead of time. We'll have to watch for this one and this one. And in the end, those guys become the models of the play, and others watch and um they just because they're not afraid, I find, of error. Like we're so error focused all the time. And in free play and open-ended play, I mean, you can't, there's no, there's no mistakes, right? You're doing what feels natural to
exactly.
you
And
and
you
you're
have so many
directing your play. Yeah.
Yeah, so many opportunities to correct your mistakes if you feel that they are mistakes, right? Like I think,
Right.
in much more direct, didactic instruction, there's really no opportunity to go over something again and again and again. And that's how, I mean, that is
Right.
how we learn.
That's it.
And that's
Mm.
something that happens in play. Another sort of facet of the case for open-ended play in the context of a very traditional school day is that this gives children a chance to actually apply what they're learning at other parts of the day in
Right.
real ways. So that's something that the teachers have said again and again too, is that, in addition to kind of being able to see the child more holistically, they
Mm.
also see in real time children taking the concepts that they're learning in their math and literacy blocks and applying them, when they're making a restaurant and they want to make a menu and they are adding pricing and they want
Mm.
their friends to make money so that they
Right.
can, pay for the food that they've created in the kitchen area. Like they're integrating every skill,
Right.
every
Right.
concept that they're acquiring. And young children that we work with, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, but they want to apply those skills. They want to be able to use these new skills that they have, writing
Right.
friends' names. There, so many children actually we've seen use this open-ended playtime to actually like, walk around the room copying some of the words that they're seeing, or like,
Yeah.
testing these math concepts out in their journals, and the teachers are like, is that play? But it is. It's just this chance to decide like how I'm going to spend this time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they really are seeing. I did write down in it, I love I love getting the question, how do we build the case for this? Because
Yeah.
we're collecting all of this evidence that it actually has huge benefits socially and emotionally and academically. But one of the kindergarten teachers that I was just talking to said that when they do this kind of mid-year math assessment, it's very focused around geometry and shapes. And she said that the children who had play lab this year, who had a chance to build with magnetiles, had a chance to work with wooden blocks, have
Mm.
really like physically know these shapes and this geometry and play this geometry, have performed better than ever on this
Mm.
mid-year assessment. And I mean, to me, okay, like that's
That's cool.
great.
I
But
mean, that's yeah.
to an administrator, like that actually matters. These
Hmm.
measurable outcomes do matter. And so I
For
don't think it
sure.
has to be one or the other. I think that this enhances the curriculum,
Right.
in so many positive ways.
Oh, for sure. It kind of leads me a bit to the just the development processes that our youngest learners go through, and that they have to go about it naturally at their own pace, and they're not all going to be at the same pace. So if we're trying to retrofit some lesson, or that everybody's doing the same thing to all these different levels of kids,
Yeah.
I mean, you can get discouraged, right? Because success, or whatever success might mean for whatever that activity is, might not show itself. But then you kick open the doors to free play, and then it starts to transform and develop those skills. Because I do find that skill development in our youngest learners, as you alluded to, is getting trickier, as with mental health, and just what COVID kind of instilled in some of these kids, as they're going through the system now. You can still feel that wave of, do it for me, like take care of me. Like, I don't want to invest in anything that, because you'll just give it to me anyway. Kind of passive learning almost, which is the opposite of what play really should instill in a student.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that play gives educators an opportunity to give children the reins in terms of their pacing. Something that's really been uncomfortable for some educators is allowing a child to return to the same kind of play every single day, when they have a regular play lab every day.
Yep.
And we talk so much about how that gives children such an opportunity to become this expert and to become really confident in this area. There was a child who every day was building the kind of this same structure with the
Mm.
magnetiles, just this very small, kind of handheld structure. And several times his teacher asked, like, should I try to push him to like try something else? Should
Mm.
I, see if, he wants to play the group? And we just had to, like at every other part of the day, he has to keep up with you.
Right.
And that's, first of all, so exhausting for a teacher to wrangle, 25 or 35 and 6 year olds by
Yeah.
themselves for the entire day and try to keep everyone in the same place. So
Yeah.
we find this is a moment of joy for the educators
Mm.
as well, to really just, be able to, be surrounded by so much learning, so much
Right.
activity in
Yeah.
the classroom. But yeah, but giving children a chance to pace themselves, and
Right.
allow that learning to unfold. Another example, this child, we have this practice called play journaling, which is, at the end of the play experience, giving children a chance to kind of write and draw about
Mm.
experience and just have
Yeah.
a moment of reflection, a completely non-assessed writing opportunity, which is great for young learners to just put pen to
Hmm.
paper and not be afraid of, it being graded or corrected.
Right.
It's just, it's their space. They can write, they can draw, they can dictate a story to an adult. Um, but
I
this
like that idea too. That's a great
yeah,
idea.
yeah. One child was just, experimenting with mark making for weeks. The teacher
Mm.
was getting a little impatient. Like, when is he going to, when is he going to draw what he was playing? And because even when we say an open-ended activity, like we're all so uh beholden to what
Yes,
what is familiar and
sure. It like goes against our,
yeah,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
when is he going to start? When is he going to develop this, visual literacy?
Mm,
And it took a really long time. It did.
mm,
He just drew these circles over and over again, and we just, we encouraged her. We have such a great relationship with so many of our partner teachers, but just said, just wait and see, just let it be for now, and we'll see. And surely enough, when he was ready, maybe it was February, maybe it was March, but
mm.
he, started combining some of those shapes. He started saying, "This is me this is me playing."
Oh, cool.
This is the block structure I made. I played in the kitchen today. Like those were huge leaps for that child. And there is such a satisfaction in seeing that growth, but seeing that it happened at the child's own pace. Um,
Absolutely. I love
yeah.
that idea, Shannon. That's really good. Like I'm always trying to figure out like so we've done this play and like I take photos and videos and we sit and talk about it and how it felt and but I never thought of just doing a journal like that with them so they could just kind of like draw things out. Just
Mhm.
no stakes to it, just like
Yep.
have them for them their reflection purposes. I really
Yeah.
like that idea. I might
Yeah, that practice started as
try
a
that.
way to, convince administrators that we were spending this time wisely, that we were incorporating, these newly acquired literacy skills.
Right.
But it has actually become a really powerful practice because it communicates to children that this work that you were doing, this play that you were doing actually matters so much that
Right.
we're going to spend time thinking about it. And the children are never required to share, but we do offer lots of different ways. We share it through the creativity project, especially with
Mm,
educators, about how to kind of document these play experiences, but how to bring
mm,
children and their voice into the sharing out of that documentation. So we might show children photos and they might respond to it and, dictate what was happening in that picture in the video. But the
mm.
journals kind of give this longitudinal study of the
Right. Yeah.
child's experience over the
You get
year.
all this trace evidence of this
Yeah,
child's growth and thought
yeah,
process. And oh, I love that. I love
yeah.
that. I'm gonna borrow that and
Yeah,
try
I'll
to
share with
just
you
try
some
it out.
some really good, some cool examples after our
Awesome.
recording.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, this has been fascinating. Love your stories. I love your journey so far in this crazy educational world that we we choose to be in. Um, but such good reflections for us up here, listeners. I really appreciate your insight into play and creativity. It's always these subjects that come up in the work that we do. So I love your perspective on it. And you've thrown out some great seeds that will start to grow around here. So thank you for sharing some of your insight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I mean, it feels like we need to continue this conversation.
Yeah,
So we'll let some time pass and maybe we can continue this because I've really enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris.